Good morning, Nigeria, and welcome to What's Your Take? My name is Dayo Akintobi, and I will be taking you through the major stories that made the headlines yesterday, today, and every day. Joining me to bring you those stories today is our newscaster and my trusty sidekick, Yetunde Afolabi. Good morning, Yetunde. How are you today?
Morning, Dayo. I'm very well, thank you. How
Lovely,
are you doing?
Brilliant. Well, happy new month as we greet each other in Nigeria, which I think that's only unique to us here in Nigeria. Happy new week, happy new day, happy new month. But anyway, yeah, it's June, which is the beginning of the 6th month of the year, which means from next month, we're in the second half of the year. Didn't this year go kind of quick, don't you think?
It did. It was very fast.
Yeah, it looks like we just started a few days ago, and here we are already entering almost the midway point. Well, let's hope the second half of the year is even better than the first half and comes with plenty of bountiful surprises for each and every Nigerian.
Hopefully.
All right, well, we've already greeted each other happy new month, so let's carry on and discuss one or two items of potpourri we have for you this morning. Well, good news, the Flying Eagles defeated Argentina in the Under-20 World Cup yesterday, going on in Argentina. That means they beat the home team, which of course is always a favorite and has a lot of crowd support and lots of noise. And Nigeria was able to prevail and beat them, so that's good news. Somebody was saying yesterday that maybe this is an indicator of the bountifulness we will enjoy under the new government, that we begin to have victories in every sector of our daily lives and our national lives as well. All right, we have a new designation in the hierarchy of designations in our polity. We now have first daughter of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Ridiculous as that may sound, it is quite true. You know, we have a first lady. We've always had a first lady, but now we have a first daughter. Apparently, social media is agog with the news that Fola Shade Ojo, who is the Iyaloja of Nigeria and the daughter of our new president, proclaimed herself as the first daughter of the FRN. Well, after a lot of outcry and surprise, she ultimately deleted that designation from her Twitter handle, but it has registered already. We now have a first daughter. I guess we are also waiting for a first son, so we're not accused of gender bias. Anyway, President Trump is in the news again. You know, President Trump is always controversial and always causing all kinds of mayhem. He has announced, of course, you know, he's running again to try and be elected for a second time, not a second term. Well, it'll be a second term, but not consecutive. And one of the things he has said is that if he is elected, he will stop children of undocumented migrants from getting birthright citizenship. What that means is that if you go to America just to have your baby is not automatically a citizen of the United States, which America has always had birthright citizenship. Unlike the UK. In the UK, many years ago, they changed their law that one of the parents must be a UK citizen for you to get birthright citizenship. But America has always said once you're born there, automatic. Well, Trump is saying he'll change that. And you know, he came into office on a wave of anti-immigration fervor back 6-7 years ago when he first came into office. So he's trying to play that immigration card again. He's trying to scare Americans that the immigrants are here, they're taking all the good jobs, they're making all the money, they're driving you into the suburbs, you no longer have a say in your own country. So he's doing what Trump is known for. That's rabble-rousing. That's Trump in his element. So let's keep a watch on America and see what happens. And let's see, first of all, if he can even get re-elected. All right, having dispatched with the lighter items on our agenda, it's time to delve into the substance of today's program. And for that, I will hand over to Yetunde to give us the headlines of the major stories we'll be looking at today. Yetunde, over to you.
Thank you, Dayo. Hello and welcome to the news updates on What's Your Take. First, the headlines. Fuel scarcity. NNPC announces adjustments in pump price of petrol premium motor spirits. Federal government's meeting with NLC over fuel subsidy removal ends in deadlock. Court upholds government's no work, no play rule against ASUU. President Tinubu meets Chinese Special Envoy. Now, the details. Nigerian National Petrol Company Limited, NNPCL, has announced an increase in the pump price of premium motor spirits also known as petrol. Fuel queues have since resurfaced across the country since the presidential pronouncements as Nigerians search for the premium product, which is now sold from 400 naira per litre to as high as 600 naira per litre. NNPC spokesman Garbadeen Mohammed, in a statement on Wednesday, said the price of the essential commodity has been adjusted across its retail outlets nationwide in line with current market realities. The price adjustment by the NNPC is coming some 48 hours after President Bola Tinubu announced an end to the subsidy era during his inaugural speech at the Eagle Square on May 29, 2023. In a related development, the meeting between the federal government and the Nigerian Labour Congress over fuel subsidy removal has ended in a deadlock. Speaking at the end of the meeting, the president of the Nigerian Labour Congress, Dayo Akintobi, said, "As far as the Labour is concerned, we didn't have a consensus in this meeting." The NLC demanded at the meeting that the federal government return to the status quo by reversing the price of fuel before resuming negotiations with the NLC. It also insisted that the federal government did not enter into any conversation on palliative measures for Nigerians, hence the rejection of the latest announcement. The talks are scheduled to continue in the coming days. Next, in a judgment delivered on Tuesday, May 30th, National Industrial Courts upheld the no work, no play policy by the federal government in the suits filed against the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASUU. The president of the courts, Justice Benedict Kanip, held that it is within the rights of the federal government to withhold the salaries of workers who embark on industrial action. ASUU had insisted on getting salaries for all the months they embarked on strike from February 14th to October 7, 2022. But the federal government under the past Muhammadu Buhari-led administration refused and insisted on enforcing its no work, no play policy against the lecturers. Moving on, President Bola Tinubu on Wednesday held a bilateral meeting with the Chinese Special Envoy at the Presidential Villa, Abuja. Though the details of discussions at the meeting have not been disclosed to the media, it's believed talks centered around strengthening relations between Nigeria and China under the Tinubu administration. And those are the headlines and news stories we will be looking at today. Over to you, Dayo.
All right, thank you. Yesterday, on a lighter note, of course, we'll take a break shortly, and when we come back, we'll be joined by a guest. But before we go, I was talking to him when we got to the studio, and he was telling me that at the fuel stations today, people are filling up their tanks with 50,000 naira. Wow! What has happened? This fuel subsidy thing is going to turn us all into a nation of trekkers. And for that, I have a picture for you to show you. Nigeria with our innovative, creative sense. We're going to start wearing bathroom slippers that have roller skates and wheels on them. So we can roller skate to work and save some energy from trekking, because we're all going to start trekking now, because who has 50,000 naira to fill a tank that will last you for 3 or 4 days? So Nigerians, put on your thinking caps and come up with different innovative ideas. We're a lovely, creative bunch of people. Look at that. Roller skating slippers. Somebody's going to make a fortune from that, I tell you. All right, we'll take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll be joined by our guest in the studio. Don't go away. Welcome back. Joining me to take a look at the big stories for today is Austine Ejeke, publisher and editor-in-chief of Agenda Papers, which is a community newspaper that covers from Ojodu Berja in Lagos State to Mowe-Bafo in Lagos State and all environs in between. Welcome to What's Your Take, Austine.
Good morning, Mr. Dayo, for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you here. Let's dive straight into the issues because we have a very limited amount of time. Of course, all of Nigeria is talking about the hike in fuel pump prices, which came unexpectedly yesterday. There had been some rumblings ever since the new president said fuel subsidy is gone during his inaugural speech. And people had begun to prognosticate about what the possible fallout of that statement during his inaugural speech. Well, no surprise, 48 hours later, yesterday morning, which was Wednesday, 31st of May, the announcement came that NNPC which is the only importer of refined fuel into the country at this point, announced that all of its stations were increasing their prices. And those prices have ranged from anywhere, they price them according to the regions of the country. Lagos is 488, Abuja is about 557, and all the way like that. Of course, there's instant reaction. How is this going to affect the average Nigerian? Do you think this was the right thing to do? Labour is already up in arms. They are in discussions with the government. What's your take on this whole fuel subsidy removal and the hike in prices at the pump? Austine.
Thank you once again.
Yes.
Well, I won't say it came to us as a surprise. Personally, for me, I operate from Airport Road in Lagos. I started observing this queue about 1 week ago. Most of the filling stations were not dispensing. Long queues here and there. My mind was telling me that something was going to happen. But the way it happened took Nigerians by surprise. And we didn't expect it. That as a president, you don't need to be flippant with words at times. That the words are law now. It's like these marketers were expecting that something of that nature will come up.
You think they prepared for it?
Yes, they prepared for it. Indirectly, that's the Nigerian people for you. Nigerian businessmen for you. It's like they actually knew that, or they had an inkling that this may happen, and they were holding their fuel. Like I told you, I observed it 1 week, 2 weeks ago. I wasn't seeing fuel being dispensed as it used to be. And to tell you, on Saturday, I took my children to reading school at their amusement park. On my way coming back, I wanted to buy fuel at a for filling station. Most of those filling stations were not dispensing. I managed to see one at Mobile. And to my surprise, they were selling dispensing at 200 naira. Whereas I've been buying 185, 184. So I knew that something was wrong. But foolishly, I just bought for my generator. I just bought 2,000 fuel. And Monday we now had this. What is the implication? The masses, the people are suffering it now. On Monday, I stepped out to go and drop my daughter at the school at Magodo. If you see the crowd at the bus stop, if you see the trekking, you pity this country. What are we saying? When you assume position of leadership, try to be humane. Look at the other side of the coin.
So are you saying subsidy should not be removed?
Fine.
The government has said they can't afford to pay it anymore now.
We know that subsidy is evil that has been eaten deep into the purse of the federal government.
Yes.
And most of us are fine with its removal. But we are thinking that it's going to be a gradual process. It's not going to be a fire brigade something. You don't just approach it just like that.
But wait, Austine, the previous government did not allocate any money. They didn't have money to put in the budget. They only budgeted for subsidy up to June. After that, they said, first of all, the Petroleum Industry Act that was passed a couple of years ago does not make provision for subsidy. After June of this year, there's no money in the budget. So how can they remove it gradually if there's no money in the budget for subsidy?
That's what I'm telling you, that subsidy provisions were made up till June ending. And when he made the announcement was in May. So what stops him from allowing to get to the end of June? Like I said, if it's a gradual process, as a novice that I am, the first thing I will do as a president is that once I take over, I'll call for the experts. We're talking about subsidy. How much is this subsidy per liter that we are paying? Let me look at it. If it's 200 naira per liter, I'll make a national broadcast. Nigerians are paying 200 naira per liter considering fuel, which is not supposed to be. From now on, I'll be removing 50 naira, either monthly or quarterly. And it will last like 12 months or 1 year. It will be a gradual process so that the impact will not be too much on the people. That is the first thing I'll do. You don't just get into office and start implementing policies that will suffer people. I tell you, Mr. Dayo, that a lot of people are going to die because of this thing.
That's extreme.
It's suffering. Some people can collapse, some people can develop terminal illnesses because of this. You've been on the road, at least you, from the inkling you gave to us, you saw what is happening. People are trekking, the hypertension and the blood pressure is building up. It's not good for us. Already, we've been tensed up with the new Naira design policy, and with the suffering and the hyperinflation that is going on. You don't expect people to just absorb everything just like that.
So you don't agree with the fact that the president said it in his own speech?
That is,
you use the word flippancy.
Yes, flippancy and arrogance. Even before before INEC declared him president, or before he became the president,
yes,
he has been telling people,
yes,
that I'm going to remove subsidy.
But and other candidates have said it. Peter Obi said
no. Let me allow. I'm going somewhere.
Okay.
He said I'm going to remove the fuel subsidy, and there's nothing you can do about it. Is that presidential a comment? And immediately he went in. He said fuel subsidy is gone, and the market has picked up on it. I'm not saying like you have asked me now. I'm a architect of removal of fuel subsidy.
Yes,
but it should be gradual and should have a human face to it.
What are some of the human elements you think could be introduced? You've talked about, okay, he could reduce the amount gradually.
Yes.
What are some of the other things he could do? We've heard about palliatives. We've heard about refineries. What do you think about the fact that the government refineries are moribund? Should the subsidy have been removed at the time the refineries are not working? Because that probably would have made the transition easier, wouldn't it?
Thank you very much. I'm not a candidate for palliative in any way.
Okay.
Palliative ends in the pockets of these politicians and businessmen that are in the government, the cabals.
You still remember
yes, I know. I'm not, if you tell me, let them not give us any palliative.
Okay.
What I expected, like I told you, if I'm the president, what I would have done is, I will also take a holistic look at the refineries. To what extent have they done the turnaround? I just had a news item yesterday. 11 trillion naira has been spent on refineries for the past 13 years. Mr. Dayo, how much does it take to do the refinery? This same refinery that Obasanjo tried to sell in 2007, and Yaradua blocked it.
Reverse,
that's why reversed or blocked. Revised it. If those refineries have been sold to private individuals, maybe we would not have been like this. So what I would have done is to see if the refineries are working, even if it's one, something that reduce the burden of importation. Because this whole issue of subsidy is the criminal element that is embedded in the importation. Where double taxation is there, demurrage is there, something that government can easily waive. They also input it because they just want to take the money away. These are the things you are hearing about this subsidy. These are the elements that make up this subsidy. So if you reduce the burden of importation,
yes,
one or two refineries are working.
Yes.
Fine too. Why don't you have patience? We're not going to die if you spend a few billions of naira in the next 3 or 6 months.
Do you hold out much hope for this discussion that the NLC is having with the federal government? They were in a closed door session yesterday for many hours, and when they came out, they said, well, there was no consensus, but discussions are continuing. Of course, we know the NLC's position is that you should return to the status quo. You can't have jerked the prices up unceremoniously and in such an impromptu fashion. And of course, the government is saying, we did what we had to do. So we're looking at some sort of middle ground between them, which they have not arrived at yet. Do you hold out much hope for succor for the masses based on the NLC's intervention here? Going
by antecedent, Mr. Dayo, I believe that this new herdsman at the NLC, Comrade Ajero, is one person I can vouch for. He's not going to disappoint. But I must be frank with you. I may not support them to say, let us go back to status quo. 185. It's not realistic. We must be candid with ourselves. But they should try to negotiate and agree that at least something within the neighborhood of 250, 300 naira. We'll be able to manage it. But not Nigerians buying fuel at 511, 500 naira, 500 and 488 when the minimum wage has not even passed 40,000. As I talk to you today, most states are not even paying up to that 30,000. Some are still paying the old 19,000 minimum wage.
Yes, and one of the things that was
so where would they get the money to transport themselves to work?
Yes, one of the things that was
so the productivity will just crumble.
Absolutely. One of the things bandied around is that salaries should be increased. But where is that going to come from?
How much are they going to? How much percentage is going to cushion the effect of the astronomical jack up of fuel price? That's what we're saying.
As you even said, some states haven't even been able to meet up.
Yes, some are not. As I'm telling you today, some are still paying 19,000 naira.
Yes.
which they are not even. My state, Abia State, is owing about 24 months salary arrears, and the 19th, and the government is gone. So you see this, so where would the worker get the money? We are talking about Nigerians and magicians, because I don't know how they survive.
Yes.
This is a worker that may have like 7 family members.
Yes, very resilient.
Yes, 5 husband and wife plus children.
Yes.
They go to school.
Yes.
How do they survive?
Yeah,
and you are hammering 500 naira per liter fuel increase on them. It's not fair.
So what you think now is that the intervention of labor will probably create a compromise somewhere in the middle.
Of
right?
course.
It will come down from the 500, but it will revert to the 187.
Yes, that's.
So Nigerians should begin to expect somewhere between maybe 250, 300.
Like
you think if it happens like that, we can live with it?
That's what I'm saying.
We'll manage ourselves.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
All right.
The labor intervention is very, very good.
Okay.
Like I said, I will not be party to say let us go back to Article 180, 190. It's not good. One thing about labor again is that they should try to be assertive now. Right? You already know. You already know that they are saying that the National Assembly have now is rubber stamp. It's not like a Lushola Saraki.
They have 2 weeks. They have 2 weeks to go.
Yes, I mean even when the next one comes.
Yes.
From all indications, we are not going to see the vibrancy of Saraki, of Kenneth Nnamani, of Pius and Pius, or for Kadibos. At least you know the antecedent. It's not just so labor may just be the last hope of the common man now.
Renewed hope.
Renewed hope. No, I don't want to use that. I don't want to use that. This is my own hope. So I don't want to use that. It's the hope of the common man now.
Yes.
To put the government in check.
I'm
not saying they should disrupt their activities and programs or manifestos, but they should also try to be a check on them.
Thank you very much, Austine. I really enjoyed that engagement. But we're running out of time, so let's talk about ASUU really quickly. The federal government took ASUU to court because, for a better part of 2022, ASUU was on strike due to the inability of the federal government to meet some of its demands, which included revitalization of public universities, remuneration for lecturers, and so on. The strike went on for 8 months. And after it was ended, the lecturers now began to agitate for back pay for the 8 months that they were on strike. So the federal government went to court and yesterday got a ruling that upheld the government's no work, no pay policy. Austine, do you think it's fair to the lecturers? First of all, how do you see this? The lecturers went on strike. During the strike, they are claiming they still did some work, that they didn't lecture, but they still did administrative stuff and were still going to the office and they're entitled to their pay. Federal government is saying you didn't work, no pay. How do you see this? How should this work out? What is fair to both parties?
That's one of the calamities that happened to Nigeria in the last 8 years, which was aptly captured by Vanguard. That this disaster, we may not have it again. That the ex-president Buhari came, he saw, and he failed woefully. It's part of the failure we had in the last administration. The education sector. The education sector is just a microcosm of the whole something that happened in these last 8 years. These are lecturers that are agitating for something. You keep on telling us that agreement was signed by the previous government. Is government not a continuum?
Yes.
If the past government made a mistake, won't you correct it? What have you done in the past 8 years to correct that mistake the past administration, so that we can have a way forward? We didn't do it. You keep on piling on blame game going here and there. Now these lecturers have gone on strike, which is a normal labor tool to get what you want. And after 8 months, you refuse to pay them. These are lecturers that have families. Some of them even died during those 8 months. It was not easy. It was not easy for them. What are you doing? You are just killing education. We have senators, House of Representatives members that don't come to work up to 1/4 of the allocated. They still collect their salary. But these are people that come to work just because they are agitating. And Mr. Dayo, one important thing that we need to stress here, that after the strike, no section was cancelled. They were put under pressure to cover up those things. So why won't you pay them their salary? It's not fair. They are just killing education. They don't care because most of their children, school abroad, we are inundated with pictures and videos of these same leaders insulting our sensibilities with the pictures of their graduating students overseas.
But let me ask you a question.
Yes.
Austine, You're a businessman.
Yes.
You run a media house.
Yes.
You have staff.
Yes.
Suppose they down tools out of some grievance and they don't carry out their editorial functions, and for that reason, you can't produce your paper, or you have to go out and employ freelancers or independent people, which costs you money.
Yes.
Will you pay those people who down tools for whatever grievances, despite the fact that they didn't work for that period?
This is a tricky question.
Won't it be a drain on your resources, and you are a for-profit venture?
Yes, this you are talking about government. I'm not talking about private sector. There should be rules of engagement.
Okay.
If I engage them, we must have rules and regulations.
Okay.
So if you don't meet up to those things, there's no way I will pay you. So I've been issue. There must be rules of engagement and rules and regulations. So if I'm at fault and they are protesting, I won't allow it to linger on for 8 months. Why would the government allow the strike to linger for 8 months? And I say you not pay them. Why not call for early release? Mr. Dayo, have you forgotten that when this strike started, someone like Chris Ngige and Festus Keyamo, who called themselves the Combrin, that they didn't do anything until after about 2 or 3 months before we started having serious negotiations. So who's first? Yes, not much serious talk started until when they started having pressures even from outside the country. That is when they started calling them for meeting.
Meanwhile,
I mean, students are languishing at home, rusticating away. So these are the issues. I blame ASUU sometimes. I also blame federal government. But like I keep on saying from some of my write-ups, I said federal government should have just forgotten everything, pay them, or can even come at a middle way. You were on strike for 8 months. I will pay you 4 months. The other one will be a kind of write-off and lesson to you. So the next time when you want to get back on strike, you think about it. Yeah. That's I think I've written on national level. That is what the federal government should have done. Instead of to say, I won't pay them the outright 8 months. It's sheer wickedness.
I see.
Nobody does that.
Yeah, and the thing about it, of course, that we should take into consideration is the fact that this strike had been called off.
Yes.
They had gone back to
do what they were. So
and they were making up. Because like
at least I didn't hear any university cancel any section. Unlike the other one, they had stayed almost 1 year, they cancelled it. No, this one they know, but I didn't. At least to the best of Nigeria, I didn't hear any section cancelled. They still carried up their listing.
So even based on encouraging the lecturers, for example, and say, okay, so you've gone back to the classroom, we've agreed on it, we've negotiated, we've agreed. So as an incentive to you, we'll pay you half
for 4 months, and the other one, if the government does that, some of us will come up and say, okay, the government has tried for you. Let bygone be bygone.
Austine Ejeke, publisher, editor-in-chief, Agenda Newspapers. It has been a really wonderful session today. We thank you very much for honoring us with your presence here today and for your very trenchant analysis of some of the pressing issues that are bedeviling us in Nigeria today. We'd like to have you back again sometime in the future. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right, lovely. Well, that's what we have for you today. That's the much we can take as our time is fast spent. Thank you for joining us. My name is Dayo Akintobi. Many thanks for watching. We'll see you again next time. Have a great day.